there's now a growing understanding that there's a whole group of individuals that have what we might call emotional over-control, kind of the taking self-control to its extreme, you might say. And this leads to, is now beginning to be understood to lead to all kinds of problems associated with interpersonal isolation, to problems with depression, those kinds of things. And also things like anorexia nervosa has been tied to it as well. What we've added here with the over-control is this idea of radical openness, the idea that you also need to learn how to be open and flexible to the environment. And radical openness is different than radical acceptance. It's kind of like developing a passion to go where you don't want to go in order to learn. And this is what we think is keeping our patients stuck, is they've lost the ability to learn from their environment. And this is because they're so over-controlled in such a state of defensive arousal that they can't take in new information. They've lost that ability to flexibly respond with others, and other people are avoiding them and not wanting to be around them. And they kind of know it in their heart that something's wrong. But no one's talking with them about the problem because it's not so obvious. It's not like these problems when you have poor self-control that are so dramatic in nature. So it's this under-recognized problem. One thing that we notice with the people that are over-controlled, and here I'm talking about the over-control problem itself. Now, one of the things that happens is they're really very sensitive to threat. So you might say that this is a big problem for them. So they notice kind of negative things more often than other people. Their brain is hardwired to actually do that, you might say. Now, what they also do that's fascinating is they don't notice rewards very much. So they kind of have less reward sensitivity. So it's sort of like this. They walk into a rose garden, and what they notice are all the thorns, but they don't notice the roses. So it's not a lot of fun, I guess you could say in some ways, to have this kind of problem because your brain's already set up to just kind of notice the bad things in life. And it keeps you on edge. Now, here you are. Your kind of brain is sort of sensitive to threat. And then what we think happens is very important, is you happen to be born or involved, or somehow your environment itself, it could be your family environment, it could be just the environment that you're raised in some way or another, does something that we think even makes it potentially much worse. And that's where you have an environment where the value is on performance and how you kind of manage yourself, how you perform, whether you're achieving or doing well. So the message from the family or from people around the child at the time is that mistakes are intolerable. It's not a good thing to make a mistake. So if you make a mistake, it's an intolerable thing. It's a terrible thing to do. And also self-control is imperative. So mistakes is not a good thing, you could say, and self-control is really valued. So kind of keeping up appearances. In fact, some of the things that we'll see, it's kind of a perfectionistic kind of family sometimes. And of course, this isn't always the case. Some of the families that have over-controlled children are also really don't have that kind of as an issue, but they end up inadvertently sometimes reinforcing the problem. The point is, if you've got this kind of biological tendency to kind of notice threat, you don't notice all the good things in life. So all you're doing, you're scanning the environment, you see a lot of lines, but you don't see a lot of biscuits. And then you're born in an environment too that sort of says what's important is to not make mistakes and to keep yourself in control at all times. So what do you learn to do? How do you manage this? Well, it turns out what you might end up doing then, and this is what we've discovered, is this kind of maladaptive coping. It's a style of coping with this because you're basically kind of highly anxious. You don't want to make mistakes. You want to keep in control. So one of the things you do is you avoid risk. You don't take risks. You don't stand out. And that way, you don't ever make a mistake. Now, the other thing that you can do is mask your inner feelings. Okay? So you don't show what's going on inside of you. And by doing that, then what you do is avoid the possibility that people might see you as making a mistake or doing something wrong. And certainly this, you're showing that you're in perfect control all the time. So what we think then happens is, well, You end up into a situation where you're not having a lot of fun, you're controlling yourself so much, and then this leads to this kind of way of behaving. And it turns out that if you over-control what's going on inside of you, it leads to a lot of social kinds of problems. If you're emotional over-controlled, remember, you've been told mistakes are intolerable, self-control is imperative. You've got to always make sure that everything looks good and that you're not doing anything wrong. You're going to get very good at kind of discounting or not taking into account new information, and you learn this kind of way of doing it. So again, why? So you avoid the arousal, you avoid the anxiety associated with that, but it keeps you stuck. It keeps a sense of stagnation. People with emotional over-control often get into a place that we call fixed mind. Now, we all do this, by the way. Fixed mind is when you kind of think you have it all solved, that you understand what's going on, and you're kind of closed to new information. So here you are, if you, though, kind of have been raised in an environment where the idea is that you shouldn't make a mistake, you should have it all sort of figured out, and that showing emotions is weak and self-control is important, then you're going to be less open to the environment. And remember, we talked about emotional health. What is it? This idea of flexibility. Well, you can see where this gets to be a problem. So we had to start to think through, how do you get people that kind of already don't see their kind of coping style as a problem to learn to be able to be more open and willing to take in critical feedback from the environment? Well, one of the things that we discovered is based on some of the work by Stephen Porges and others, is that the neuroregulatory system is bidirectional. So you can change how you feel by changing what you do. And this is one of the most important insights we had. So we started to begin to think through, how could we get the safety system, which is a part of your brain, it's a part of the vagal system actually, activated. So if we could get your brain to get to a place of feeling safe and calm and content, this safety system is also the part of your brain that gets you to want to engage with others, kind of be playful or have curiosity, be relaxed, and want to affiliate with others. And so that seemed to be the idea. Instead of trying to change how they think so much or change what they do, although we still do that, we also began to realize that it might be important to change physiology first before they go and interact with others. And this was an important kind of novel understanding that we got to.